Dc37 Christmas in Fairytale Forest. A Christmas story. Soul-touching and life-enhancing stories. Christmas in Fairytale Forest. A Christmas story. It was that special time of the year again, when many children received an invitation and a ticket in their Christmas stocking to come and celebrate Christmas at the Fairytale Forest. With the Jingle Bell Choo-Choo train, the invited children would travel to the forest to have a very special time, starting 2 days before Christmas until Boxing Day, the day after Christmas. The little station was packed with parents, brothers and sisters of the invited children. The hearts of the invited children were beating high, and their eyes were glowing when they saw the Jingle Bell Choo-Choo train slowly entering the station. The train was beautifully decorated with Christmas ornaments and flashing lights, and the sides of the train had many paintings, presenting many Christmas stories the children knew about. The train came slowly to a halt, and then the doors swung open. Although excited, the children all boarded in an orderly manner. The inside of the train was just as beautifully decorated as the outside. "Please sit down," spoke a warm voice coming from the speakers in the ceiling. A lot of voices whispered to each other. "It's the voice of Father Christmas." "Welcome, welcome, children. Take a seat and enjoy the ride." With 3 sharp whistles and some toot-toot sounds, the train took off, and the children waved to their family members standing on the station. After a little while, the train started its way up into the mountains, rolling on its way to Fairytale Forest. As the children were looking out of the windows, the voice of Father Christmas explained about all the different trees and plants that could be seen while passing. In the train, adults dressed up in the costumes of princesses and princesses entered the compartments, pushing carts packed with food packages and beverages. "All healthy stuff," spoke Father Christmas again, "because we need to stay healthy and strong, for we all know that we will be eating sweets these coming days." Around 1 o'clock they arrived at the first stop, the Chocolate Factory Inn. The Chocolate Factory Inn was created in the shape of a huge red apple, half covered with chocolate, and then there were many windows at different levels. The children figured out that there were many floors inside the Chocolate Factory Inn. At the reception stood Mother Chocolate. Her hair was made out of white chocolate, and her face, being light brown, was also chocolate, and her clothes were made of dark chocolate. Her shape was round and her body jiggled, and her face was smiling. "Put your backpacks down, children. Sign your name in at the reception. The rooms are big enough so you do not have to sleep by yourself." After the children had been assigned to their rooms, Mother Chocolate gathered all the children around her and said, "Your names are actually already written on the doors, but I'm not going to tell you on which floor and where in the inn." The children laughed and had lots of fun finding their rooms. They unpacked their backpacks, made their beds, and were asked through the intercom system to come to the big meeting hall downstairs. The huge room was called Bittersweet, and after they'd taken their seats, Mother Chocolate stepped onto the little stage and started to explain everything that could be told about chocolate, where it came from, the many different kinds, and all the ingredients used. She explained that good chocolate had fewer ingredients, and the cheap chocolate often would have harmful and artificial ingredients. On the little tables in front of them, little baskets were placed with many different types of chocolate. After they had tasted the different ones, they had to write down which they thought tasted the best. They all came to the conclusion that the chocolate with pure ingredients had the best taste. Slowly, A squeaking noise came from the right side of the room. All the children were staring as they saw one of the wall partitions opening like a magical sliding door up into the ceiling, and then they were all facing a part of the chocolate factory, where colorkins were working to make all the different kinds of chocolates. Colorkins are the size of hobbits with pointy ears, big black round eyes, and their skin changes constantly as they work with different colors and shades of chocolate. As the children were watching the process, Mother Chocolate explained everything that took place in the factory. It was very interesting, and especially the lovely smell coming from the factory. Slowly, one wall after the other opened around the entire room to show the entire process from the beginning to the end, which was where boxes of chocolate were put into delivery trucks leaving the chocolate factory. After the demonstration, the children were allowed to play outside in the enormous playground where everything was made out of very sturdy chocolate. Mother Chocolate assured them that it would not break, although it was quite old. "You will find out, children," she said, "that the chocolate is not so tasty anymore." But those children who had tried to lick the chocolate stopped immediately, also because they had had enough chocolate for the day. As they started to play, all the colorkins who had finished their day at the work at the chocolate factory came to play with the children on the playground. This was big fun, because the colorkins came up with even better and funnier ideas than the children themselves. Beautiful music tunes of old Christmas songs from all over the world were playing in the background, coming from all the hidden speakers hanging high in the trees, underneath benches, and hidden in the bushes. The children played to their heart's content until their bodies were tired. After a healthy dinner, the children went back to their rooms and fell asleep while listening to Christmas stories. Chapter 2, Day 2. After a delicious breakfast next morning with fruits and nuts from all over the world, the children went back to their rooms, cleaned and straightened out everything, and they all packed their backpacks again. They thanked Mother Chocolate, who was waiting outside for them, and all the children stepped back into the Jingle Bell Choo-Choo train, which was waiting for them in front of the inn. Waving goodbye from behind the windows of the train, the children also saw all the colorkins standing and hanging from the top part of the huge apple-shaped inn as they waved goodbye. Up and up the train went into the mountains, curving through and in between big rock formations, and then the train entered a huge ice tunnel. The train slowed down because the tunnel was going steeply up into the mountain. There the children, much to their surprise, saw inside the ice walls huge formations of crystals and precious gems. The heat inside the train was turned up and the windows were pulled down so the children could hang out, turning their faces to see the beauty up close. Many dwarfs were digging and cutting in the walls to remove the crystals and gems. And again Father Christmas' voice came on the speakers, and he explained the different types of gems and crystals, how they came about, and what kind of service they offered to the world. As the train went very slow, the children were offered small pieces of gems and crystals by the dwarfs, and they were fascinated by these little treasures. "Make good use of them," they were told. After some time, Father Christmas' voice said that the children had to sit down again, after which the windows were closed. The train increased speed and left the tunnel. And then there it was, Fairytale Forest. On the left and the right they could see the valley as they drove over a huge steel bridge to the other side of the mountain. The entire valley was filled only with Christmas trees in a variety of sizes. But there was something strange. All the children felt it, for they had entered the ice tunnel in full daylight, and suddenly a little boy named Nisan screamed, "It is night time! How did that happen?" "Very well observed," said Father Christmas. "In Fairytale Forest it is always night, because in the darkness we can enjoy the spectacle of lights even more." And indeed, it was an incredible light show, reflecting from all the lights in the trees, which created light beams that went high up in the sky, even touching the stars. After the train had passed the long bridge, the train slowly started circling around down the mountain into the valley of Fairytale Forest. The closer they came, the more the children's eyes were watching with interest as they saw things they'd never expected to see. They were watching an immense traffic going in and around each Christmas tree. Each tree was being dressed up by different folk. The snow elves, the swans, the hobbits, the dwarfs, the flower elves, the little star children, the gnomes, and helped by the reindeer carrying baskets or ornaments on their sleighs. They were all helping each other. There was not only traffic on the ground, but also over the trees, where white reindeer and flying elves also assisted, bringing new ornaments, lights, and gifts to dress up the tree, each tree. "It is the night day before Christmas Eve," spoke Father Christmas' voice, "and they are all in a hurry to get each tree ready." As the train and the children passed all the beautiful fairy tale folk working, they all paused for a minute, turned their faces to the children, and waved with their hat of feathers. Suddenly the windows of the train opened again, and now the children could hear the magical folk all singing, "Welcome, welcome, welcome, welcome to our Christmas world," which was repeated over and over while they were working. The train had circled down and around and it stopped at a big station. The train doors opened on the left side, and as they stepped out, they were facing Christmas Hotel. The eyes of the children opened even wider to see how beautifully the entire hotel was decorated. Most of the hotel was covered with red and blue sparkles, and around the windows lights were traveling. "Ho, ho, ho," sounded the voice of Father Christmas. But now his voice was not coming over the speakers. He was standing in the hotel entrance, dressed in a beautiful red silken outfit with black boots. He spoke. "Come all of you, I could use a big hug." The children ran up in small groups and they all gave him big hugs. He laughed until his belly was jiggling. "Go inside and get your room assigned." As they entered their rooms, they found in their closets, in the right sizes, fairy tale costumes in which they dressed up in after they had freshened themselves up. Each child found their favorite costume as if Father Christmas had known what would please them the most. Over the intercom, Father Christmas asked them to come down to the big dining room. On all sides of the room there were standing white Christmas trees with blue lights. Even Father Christmas had changed into a blue suit and looked great and majestic with his white beard. The children sat at big wooden tables, seating 6 to 10 children. Fairies with trays of foods were flying around and serving the children with healthy and delicious foods. On a balcony, a little band of dwarfs was playing songs and on old-fashioned instruments. After they finished dinner, Father Christmas told them to follow him. "It's Christmas Eve. Let us see what's going on outside in Fairytale Forest." Many big doors opened up to the huge terrace. The children walked out, each finding a spot behind the wooden railing. There was enough space for everyone. The colors were incredible. All the trees were finished and fully decorated, and the fairy tale folk were all dancing and flying around the trees they had decorated. Star children and the gnomes were sitting in the trees, Hobbits and dwarfs were sitting on the back of reindeer, and then snowflakes danced down, which made it even more amazing, and surprisingly it was not cold at all. The fairy tale folks were still singing their welcome song, and for the children this was truly a magical feast. After a while it started snowing harder and harder, and it became impossible to see the forest, and the sounds disappeared into the night. "Come," spoke Father Christmas, "it's time to go to bed." And he wished them all a good night, with snowflakes dancing on their windows, and their minds full of that evening. The children fell fast asleep. Chapter 3, Day 3, Christmas Day Night. Bells were ringing the next morning, which was still in the night, because remember, in fairy tale forests it always stays night. The bells woke the children, who were still comfortably laying in their beds. After the bells stopped, the voice of Father Christmas echoed through the speakers. "Ho, ho, ho, good morning night and Merry Christmas. Children, just put your robes on and come to the staircase." The corridor outside the room was a huge staircase that wound slowly down into the lobby. As the children stepped out of their rooms, they went up to the railing, because they were facing an enormous Christmas tree that rose up from the ground floor to the top of the building. This must have been organized by the fairy tale folks while they were sleeping. The branches of the trees were reaching over the railing, and at the end of every branch there were presents hanging. The rest of the tree was incredibly decorated, and the fairy tale folk were sitting everywhere inside the tree. The children could also see star children and fairies flying in and out of the tree. Father Christmas, standing in the lobby, raised his voice once more and said to the children, "There are many presents for each one of you, and your names are written on the packages." This was fun. The children were going up and down the stairs, because everywhere at different heights and levels in the tree they found their names on presents. With all their presents in their hand, they went down to the lobby, where Father Christmas sat in a huge wooden chair, also decorated with ornaments and green Christmas tree branches. Behind Father Christmas there was a huge open fireplace, and all the children sat down in a half circle around the open fire, which was very cozy. "Open your presents," said Father Christmas. They were all fascinated with the gifts they received. Then, as the children were showing each other's presents, Father Christmas spoke again. "May I have your attention, please? Look at me for 1 second." All the kids stopped and listened. "So," said Father Christmas, "look at your presents, and let me ask you all one question. What would be more precious than the gifts you have in front of you? Close your eyes for a moment." And he repeated again the sentence, "What would be more precious at this moment than having these presents in front of you?" After a short silence, answers were coming from everywhere. "My mama, my papa, my brother, my sister, my family." At that moment the lobby doors swung open, and their parents, brothers and sisters walked inside. The children jumped up and ran to their family members. The Jingle Jell Choo-Choo train had just brought them to Fairy Tale Forest, so they could celebrate Christmas together. It took a while for everyone to calm down, because everyone had to tell their own story, and finally they took their presents and were allowed to show their family their rooms. They also toured with them around the entire hotel. The children washed themselves and dressed up in their costumes, and discovered that there were extra costumes to fit their family members. After that, everybody went down for breakfast. All the children and the parents were seated in the largest room of the hotel. It held one big round table where everyone could sit. Then the next magical thing started happening. The middle of the table sank down into the floor, Then they saw little plateaus rising from the floor, and on each elevation there were elves and dwarves and gnomes and hobbits and star children, and all the fairy tale folk came to join the Christmas breakfast. Then right in the center another plateau came up, and the same music bands of dwarfs of the night before started to play Christmas songs. They enjoyed a beautiful breakfast, after which they were allowed to go in the backyard, which was an enormous ice and snow park. Colorful and bright shining lights came from huge ice crystals, which gave off light. It was a playground made of ice and snow, with many tunnels to venture through, slides to slide down, and cable tracks leading up to small hills, where small sledges were waiting to slide them down again. All the children and parents started playing about on the playground. Some started to make snowballs and throwing them in a fun way to each other. Others started making snowmen. Everybody was busy and contented. Whenever somebody got too cold or was in need of food or a drink, there was a huge igloo, as big as a circus tent, with stars inside on the ceiling, which lit the place. There were stands with various foods and drinks in every corner. There were magicians and storytellers and acrobats and different puppet theaters. All the items inside the igloo were all made out of good food items. It was so much fun to eat from everything, and it was all made out of healthy stuff. After many hours of playtime, they were all asked to go back to Christmas Hotel and take their place again on the railing of the big terrace, where they had been the night before. All of them were staring towards Fairytale Forest, which was completely dark, and everybody was then looking at each other. What is happening here? They thought. And then, suddenly all the lights went on. The children were pointing and talking to their family members. Look at this, look at that. The fairy tale folks had taken their places again and were sitting, dancing, or flying around. Music was coming from every corner, and then the climax of the day came. It was a laser fireworks show. Beams of light and fireworks were shooting out at the same time, together with all the lights and the motions of the fairy tale folk. It was just unbelievable. What a celebration! The show lasted at least an hour, after which the children, their parents, brothers and sisters, went back into the hotel. The rooms had been changed around so the children and their families could stay together. The children had so much to say about all that had happened, but after an hour or so, it finally quieted down in the hotel. Slowly but surely, the lights dimmed, and everybody went into a peaceful sleep. Chapter 4, Day 4, the Last Day. The next morning, they were amazed again to see that all their suitcases and backpacks were packed and ready to go, for sure that was again the work of the fairy tale folk, as they had also prepared breakfast and lunch packages for their travel back home. They looked everywhere for Father Christmas, to thank him and say goodbye, but they could not find him. All children and their family members, while wandering through the entire hotel, took at least one peek into Fairytale Forest from the terrace balcony. Then they heard the tooting of the Jingle Bell choo-choo train coming, and everybody went to their room to take their backpacks and suitcases, and everybody gathered by the station. They were a little sad. No goodbyes to Father Christmas. To their surprise, there was no choo-choo train. While standing there waiting, they suddenly saw a bright light coming from the sky. It came closer and closer and became bigger and more visible. They all cheered. It was Father Christmas in his sleigh, with his reindeer in front. He made a couple of loops and landed in front of them. "Good morning," Father Christmas said cheerfully. "Step inside." Everyone started to laugh and said that the sleigh was too small for all of them. "Just step in," he said, And as they did, one by one, every time the sleigh was almost full, it started growing. It was a magical sleigh that grew in size. The more persons, the more space it created. They were told to buckle up, and then they took off. A couple of loops were made before they went higher and higher in the sky with a speed faster than light. They flew in between stars and planets, and more amazing was that they flew into the future and the past, seeing things that had happened in the past and things still to come. So, now you know how I get my presents to you in time everywhere. And now you know I know everything about everybody. And not to forget, with the speed of my sleigh, I'm always on time, even if I might have forgotten somebody in the past. I can still bring the gift and still be on time. Also, as you have seen, I can pack as many presents I want in the sleigh, said Father Christmas. Everybody was quiet and fascinated, and then Father Christmas said, "You are all going to help me to bring Christmas gifts all around the globe." They brought presents in the future and the past, and in between they ate from their breakfast and lunch packages. Shortly after lunch, they flew and ended up on a planet called the Toy Planet. On this planet, the only thing that went on was toy making. "So, this is where you get all your toys from?" And everybody said, "Yes," laughed Father Christmas. "The toys I collect here, they are made by toys." The magic of this planet is that it is always daylight and everybody keeps on working and the toy makers never get tired. They are the best workers you can find. It was a beautiful countryside with lots of meadows filled with flowers. Everywhere they could see huge castles, and in each individual castle different toys were made. After the tour on Toy Planet, Father Christmas spoke again to them. "I will have to take you home all now, and I will drop you one by one at your doorstep. I thank you all for having celebrated Christmas with the fairy tale folk and myself. But one thing before you go. Do you remember in the very beginning of your trip having received crystals and gems?" he asked. "Yes, yes, yes," answered the children. They all checked their backpacks and pulled them out. "Yes, we still have them." "So," said Father Christmas, "these crystals and gems are for you to give to the people who need magic in their life. People who have lost the ability to play and have simple fun. Children who are trying to grow up too fast and adults who have had a hard time to play like children. Life has become too serious for many people. By bringing them the crystals and gems, they will be able to feel the magic again." "Can we not keep them for ourselves?" some children asked. "You were already given a precious gift. You are allowed to come and celebrate Christmas in Fairytale Forest. The gems and crystals have to be given away. If you keep them, they will automatically disappear. No matter where you hide them, they will go." And then Father Christmas took off in a sleigh and one by one brought each family home again. But before stepping out, there were first lots of handshakes, thanks, hugs, and good wishes exchanged. They all agreed that it had been the most beautiful Christmas celebration with the fairy tale folks at Fairytale Forest. What the story could bring us. Life is like a fairy tale, where magic is happening from moment to moment. It is very important to stay in contact with this magic and fantasy that we have as children, for it makes our life magical. But in most cases, our life becomes boring and serious. We tend only to read and look at fairy tales that others have produced, and we forget our own magical part in this magical fairy tale called The Adventure on Mother Earth.